Welcome to Transcendence Talks podcast with your host, licensed professional counselor, Kristy Crabtree. Join us as we build the bridge between psychology and spirituality and discuss psychology for the soul.
Hey everybody, welcome to Transcendence Talks podcast. I have such a special guest today. This is my friend Karissa Sherwood. She is a psychic medium. She is a published author and she's a healer. And we actually met in the British Virgin Islands and didn't know that we were from the same town in Arizona, and connected immediately in the British Virgin Islands and have stayed friends. And we have some really cool upcoming adventures together this year that we'll get more into. But with that being said, welcome, Karissa. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about is Karissa has a book that was literally just published and put into the world. She is a special needs mom and poured her heart out into this beautiful memoir and book about raising a special needs daughter. And it's available on Amazon now. It's called Mothering Marley. How does it feel to have your book in your hands?
Oh, it's like a mix of all of the emotions for sure. Like it feels like so much weight released. You know, I've been holding that book for so long, but it was really hard to have it be let out in the world. And when my copy came in the mail, it sat on the counter for like a full day before I even opened it. Like, how do you not just tear it open and admire your work? But I just didn't quite know if I was ready, because I knew once I saw it and held it in my hands, like I couldn't take any of it back, you know, like the toothpaste in the tube, you squirt it, you can't put it back in, and mostly just nervous, scared, fearful around how it would be received. And I'm very, very, very honest about how I feel and some of the experiences that shaped me. And that does involve other people. That does involve relationships and friction in relationships. And so I had a lot of fear on how that would be received, or so it's been work to navigate and letting people have their big feelings around it.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you, you know, as my mind's going into editing, and I've been struggling with the same thing. You know, my friend Michelle said it best, I think. She said, yeah, it's probably going to feel like you're walking naked through Costco. I was like, yeah, that resonates.
Yes, of like our own choosing. You know, it's not like, oh, someone caught me.
Yeah.
No, it's like I'm taking all my clothes off and just like, if anybody wants to see, it's all here for you. Like I chose to do that.
Right. But I have to keep coming back to, for myself anyways, the thought of my vulnerability. My hope is that my vulnerability and my honest and candid sharing of my darkest times, my highest highs, is that it will help somebody else. Somebody who maybe doesn't have a voice to talk about what's happened to them or how they've been shaped by trauma, and that somebody else might be more okay with their feelings or their situation as a result.
Yes. Yes.
And that's my hope.
Yes. And that has helped me, honestly, like not get so stuck on some of the feedback that I'm getting, or criticism or big feelings, you know, from my family, is the comments from people that I don't really know, you know, saying like, this book is for me, or you're putting words to my feelings, or thank you so much for sharing your story. So I just have to continually push through, because that's what makes it so worth it. And that's why I wrote the book. Really, I wrote it for the people that are ready to hold the truth in its pages. And not everybody is, honestly. And I have to be okay with that too.
Yeah. So tell me more about the message. Like, what are you hoping that readers gain?
Mothers play such a crucial role in the lives of their children. And you know the saying, like, the depths of a mother's love knows no bounds. Like, actually, yeah, it does. That feels very untrue to me, because um, the way that we love and show up gets blocked by our own pain. And so it limits us and how much we are able to show up for our kids, how much love we can extend towards our child. And so I am so passionate about mothers, especially, really working on themselves and healing their own hearts and healing their own wounds. Because when they do that, then they can show up so much better for their children. And it's just this ripple effect, you know?
As a therapist myself, I feel like these are the statements that get echoed in the therapy room all the time, not by clients, but when I'm working with other clinicians who work with families, who work with adolescents, who work with children. They say, wow, so much of what's happening in the therapy space are these parents projecting or being limited in their skills with their children because of their own wounds. And as much as I encourage them to go to therapy and to work on their own stuff, they get so resistant. And so to hear you say that lands on me like music, because I've noticed that I have a child who's not neurotypical. And I've noticed that my own fears, my own frustrations, my own whatever are my own. You know, they're not because of him, they're because of my own things. And so can we go deeper into that? Can you give me some real life examples? Because I feel like what you just said is, oh, it's so key, because sometimes I even see parents have expectations of their children that are expectations that they can't even uphold emotionally. Like the level of obedience or compliance or emotional regulation that they expect from their children is something that they don't even have fully developed themselves. And so it can be mind blowing to see it. So I'd love to hear some of your experience.
Well, you know, have you heard like the analogy, like if you're ever pointing your fingers out here, like this is your fault or your problem or you're the reason that we're not closer, like we need to take those fingers and just point them right back at us. Like, what am I doing in this relationship, doing or not doing, that's preventing us from being closer, from connecting more deeply? So last summer, I have a daughter, my youngest daughter, and we are different but very similar. I'm super touchy feely, and I'm super and feeling, you know, high feeler with my emotions, and she just really isn't wired that way. And so we're either like the best of friends, like besties, or not, you know. And this last summer we were just coming up on so much friction, and I felt like, whether this was true or not, my lens was I couldn't do anything right in her eyes. Like I was constantly falling up short, missing the mark, like, and I feel like I'm just doing so much for her and then it's still not enough. And I felt myself withdrawing from her energetically. Physically, we're still totally in the same space. I am withdrawing from her and I can feel it. I notice it, you know, it was like painful. So it's like, why am I, she's freaking 12 years old. Okay. I'm the adult here. But I was like, I'm just going to protect my heart because, you know, you're hurting my heart. This is kind of what's happening internally. And I finally just had to like slap myself and just be like, oh my gosh, Karissa, you're the freaking adult. Be the adult. So naturally, when someone we love, or especially our children, hurt us in some way, not intentionally, but like it's a total mirror for our own wounds. This really had nothing to do with my daughter. This had everything to do with me and some of my older wounds of feeling rejected, of feeling not enough. Like she was just mirroring that for me. So I had to like come back to myself, you know, over and over again and be like, okay, Karissa, you're doing your best. It's okay. And it really came back to, do I really feel like what I'm doing is enough for her? Like, do I know that I'm giving as much as I can? And if I do, then can that be enough? Even if in her eyes, maybe she's feeling like I'm coming up short. If I really know in my heart I'm doing my best, that's all I can do. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting because like as adults, we should know this, or we should be able to operate like with a higher lens, but no, we really don't. If we don't have the awareness, we keep showing up like as wounded adults trying to parent these kids.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we have to be so intentional. And that word, there was a word that you said that hit me, and it was enough. Because I feel like that's such a wound for people too. Because, like, where does enough begin and end? Where do you set that bar for yourself, that standard? Are we holding ourselves to like these unrealistic expectations? Are we rescuing our relationships? Are we taking on too much responsibility? Are we taking something away from our children? Trying to figure out what is enough is such a triggering word too, I think.
Yes. Yes, totally. And since then, you know, like I said, we go in these waves, she and I. But like nothing has changed. Like I'm really not doing anything different, like physically. I'm not making her more meals or I'm not, whatever, but like something in me has shifted energetically. So instead of moving away from her, like I moved closer towards her. And it has shifted something in the dynamic. So like we cannot expect our children with these underdeveloped brains to like just figure this stuff out or know this, or they need to come to us. Like stop with that. Like no, we're done doing that. Okay. That's how our parents did it. That's how their parents do it. Like we can choose to continue that, or we can create new patterns and do it different.
What was that catalyst for you? What was kind of like the wake up call where you're like, something needs to shift and it starts with me?
I mean, it happened when I like started doing my own healing work. I had a hole in my heart. I had a hole in my heart. And so I just expected everyone around me to fill this hole in my heart. And that shows up the most, I think, in your partnership, because that's who you rub shoulders with the most. And so I just kept like, oh my gosh, give me this, give me that, and it was just never ever enough because he can't fill a hole. I'm the only person that can fill a hole. And so once I started to do that work, I realized like everything that I'm looking for needs to come from within. I'm trying to outsource this, and that's never going to solve, it's never going to heal this hole. And so things started to shift in my house when things started to shift with me, inside me, like my internal world shifting. So my external world shifted. And it wasn't even like we needed to have like these big conversations or anything like that, but like everybody in my house could feel that I was shifting and they responded to me. So the mother, I feel like, I mean, you can take this as, wow, that's a lot of pressure to put on a mother, but the mother really sets the tone for the home. She really does. And I feel like so many homes operate, whether they know it or not, everyone is just like responding or reacting to the mother, quite honestly. So it was a ripple in my whole house.
What a, like in your words, it's touching because there's such a profound sense of humility and accountability. And I feel like those qualities are what heal. Like when you can look at your children and you can be like, oh, you know what? Can we get a redo? I was too harsh. I'm sorry. Let's take a step back and breathe. And I feel like that, right? Like to give ourselves grace to be like, hey, you know what? I'm a human and I made a mistake. And I'd love the opportunity to redo this with you. Like there's just, that is so healing, so nurturing.
Yes, it's a small thing, but it really requires like
Mhm.
putting our ego to the side and our need to be right, because we're the parent and we're the adult and you should respect me, and just like admit our humanness or take accountability for our humanness. Like
We expect
I
our kids to.
yeah, like we are modeling all the things for them. Like,
Yeah.
we have to do it. We have to do it. My friend Angel, I think you met her at the JOA conference. Her name's Angel Lynn, and she'll
Yeah.
say when she reacts to something or like, handle the situation in a way that she didn't really want to. She'll like stop in front of all the kids and she'll be like, "Okay, Angel asked the kids to clean the kitchen, take two." And it's just like basically saying like, can we just redo that? What just happened? Can we just try that again? Like really? It
I love
just
it.
puts
Mhm.
everybody's walls down, and it puts your kids' walls down. And that's what we want, honestly, because we can't connect when there's walls and there's barriers.
Absolutely. So, who is your book for? Who is your like target audience and who will benefit the most from reading Mothering Marley?
When I was first writing it, I was like, this is for all mothers. But then I got in my head a little bit and I'm like, I think I have to niche down and say it's for mothers of special kids because, was the catalyst for me. But it's really not, honestly. The book is a template for looking at yourself. It's a really good baseline. Like how do I start to shift my lens a little bit and stop living in this victim mentality and just step back for a second and like, how am I contributing to this? What part am I playing? How could I show up differently? Just giving you some basic context like projecting and mirror work. And so honestly, it's for every mother. I feel.
That's beautiful. That it feels so relatable. you know, and I'm sure every mom listening to this podcast today can see themselves in one of these examples or one of these stories. You know, we all have those moments where we like lose our shit in the kitchen, or, you know, just feel like, oh my gosh, nobody listens to me, and like, you know, blah, 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 like whatever that story is. And while there's some truth in it, it's like, yeah, we have to look at ourselves. Where do we fail to follow through? Where do we fail to set clear expectations or to have good boundaries? Like, where are we dropping the ball? Where are we taking on too much responsibility? And like maybe the bar set too low for our children and then we're tired of it, but we don't own it, you know? It's so relatable.
Yes. And I feel like I would say most mothers have a child that is a little more difficult in some way, like maybe like beats to their own drum or just doesn't kind of fall in rhythm of all the other kids. And that like pings us. It really does hit like some deeper pain points in us. And so even if you or whomever doesn't have a child with special needs, like is there a child that you have that's harder to connect to, a little more defiant, you know, like, and then the question is, what does that strum in you? What unhealed part does that or their behavior or lack of action strum in you? Because that's where the information is.
Absolutely. You have to be willing to look at that trigger, that part, that ego state that comes up when you're around that child. And let me ask you this, because I feel like for me, the way I conceptualize that sometimes is we have a soul agreement with that child. Like that child was hand chosen by God, by our higher self, to come into our life as an opportunity for us to either heal or to perpetuate patterns. But those children are the disruptors in a family. And we can feel that disruptor energy. But that's just the way I conceptualize it because I have one too. So I've always looked at him that way.
Yes. And we think that disrupting is like a bad thing, but
Mhm.
it isn't. It really is for our highest good, but we have to push through so much of our own discomfort and really trying to, I mean, patterns are wanting to be disrupted. Like, can we let them? They're wanting to be rewired, they're wanting to be changed. And that's part of that child's agreement in coming here.
Right. So there's a sense of like radical acceptance, radical responsibility that we as the adults, that we as parents have to take to allow the child to complete their soul's mission, which is like enough, right? Like we're going to have healthier families and we're going to create this, and it starts with you, and they'll call us to that higher timeline or that higher vision if we allow them to, and we can put our walls down long enough.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think it's so helpful to have that higher lens, you know, of these soul agreements and these soul contracts. Like, one thing that I want to say to mothers is you are the very best person to raise your child. Like, there is nobody that can do it better than you. And you chose this child chose you. Like, some part of both of you agreed to this, like, honestly, you know, because we feel so unqualified. And especially if, you know, at some point, like in the beginning, when I was a young mother, I was so hard on my kids. Like, I was so hard on them. Just, I had this list that needed to be completed, really, so that I could externally feel some kind of peace, you know, that my system could like look around and be like, oh, we're all good here, when really, like, no, I wasn't good at all. So, I mean, just to know, like, okay, we both came here, we both agreed. I just would beat myself up even more because, you know, these kids are so perfect and it's me. I was the one that was just so reactive and angry all the time, short tempered. But like, if someone were to tell, you know, so I beat myself up. But if someone were to really tell me, if I could have had that lens back then, like, Karissa, there's nobody else that could do this better than you. And your kids honestly don't even want anybody other than you. They just want the very best version of you, the most healed version of you. That would fill a hole in my heart. You know, like, okay, actually, I have been chosen to do this, and it's within me to be able to do this. That means somewhere inside of me, I am capable of finding that highest version of myself.
Absolutely. Wow. That's so beautiful. Just to hear such a raw story of just transformation, accountability, um, and absolutely, I bet even from like an adult child's perspective, right? How healing would it be to hear those words from your parents, even as an adult, right? Of just like, wow, I'm sorry. I could have done this different. I wish I would, right? Like, that's all it would take. It's so simple. It's so simple.
Really?
Mhm.
Like, I think we overcomplicate what healing looks like and requirements for healing, or, oh, it's going to be this really big hard, but just starting with accountability, or just like trying to see it from the other person's lens, or just like, I mean, it would speak volumes. It would go so far. And again, that would be the conversation starter to have both parent and child take their walls down.
So, kind of segueing from these soul contracts into like the whole other part of Karissa, right? Because you're a mom, but you're also working as a medium. And do those worlds bridge in any way? Like, I'm just kind of curious. I don't think we've talked about this, but
They really do. I mean, at first, I don't know if I recognized it, but it's honoring sacred bonds between mothers and their children on a physical and a spiritual relationship. And then in the world of mediumship, it's honoring the sacred bonds between the physical and the spiritual world. So, like, to me, they totally go hand in hand.
and now you use your mediumship work to help other special needs parents, right? To communicate with their nonverbal children.
Yes, I've just started doing this. I didn't even know that I could do it, honestly. But I have a friend that has a 9-year-old son that is nonverbal, and he was not sleeping through the night. And she said to me one day, like, Karissa, can you tap into him and see what he needs? And I was like, oh, I've never done that. I don't know if I can do that. And she's like, just try. And so I did, and I could see him in his bed, and he was like shaking his legs, like moving his legs really fast. And I said, it almost looks like he has like spiders on his legs or something, like he's trying to get the spiders off, but he can't get them off, but it's not spiders. And then I said, and then I can see him, he's grabbing my hand and he's walking me to the pantry. Is there something in the pantry that would help his legs? And so, like, to me, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know. But I'm saying this to the mother, and she's like, oh my gosh, she's like, restless legs runs in our family, and it can show up at night. And potassium before bed helps quiet the restless legs. He's walking you to the pantry. He's reminding me that I need to give him a banana for bed. Like, what? That's amazing.
Oh,
It's amazing.
yes, yes.
So I want to
Wow.
do more of that.
Mhm.
It's really beautiful. And now this boy, he will visit me in my dreams when he wants to talk to his mom. And when he first started showing up, he would like literally move his mouth talking. And so in the beginning, as I was like developing this gift and developing like how the divine is trying to communicate with me, sometimes I would take some of the things that I would see or feel like literal. And I realized over time, like, no, not literally moving his mouth, but he has something that he wants to say. And I'm a person that can hear, see, know what he's trying to say. And have you heard of the telepathy tapes? This podcast, just wildfire. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. Yes. So now his mother is learning about all of this and learning how she can telepathically talk to him. And so now she'll say to him, like, come visit me in my dreams and tell me what you need, or, and he has been visiting her. And again, in the same way, like he'll show up and he's literally moving his mouth. So now I'm like kind of sad because I'm like, oh, well, now you know how to do it. And he doesn't need me. He's not going to come visit me anymore. Because, really, that's what they want. They want to talk to their parent. And if the parent doesn't even know that that's possible, then maybe they'll go to a mediary, So that's the whole point, is the connection. Yeah.
So beautiful. Because, okay, yeah, I did hear about that podcast. And so essentially the moral of it, just for our listeners who don't know, is that these children with nonverbal autism have the gift of telepathy, and it's been proven, right, through studies and things like that, which is extremely mind-blowing. And it's always like a felt sense that I've had, not necessarily with kids with autism, although I believe that was true, but even with animals. Like, I've always connected so deeply with animals that I'm one that could like look into their eyes and feel the sentiment that they're trying to express pretty clearly. Because I've always just bonded with them so deeply. And so it just wouldn't surprise me, right, that these humans, these souls who don't have the ability to verbally communicate would be able to express it in other ways, like, because they have a soul.
Yes. And really, that's how souls communicate anyways, It's soul to soul. Like, we don't need physical verbal language like that.
I bet if any of our listeners listening now have ever had it, because I think it's a common phenomenon that when a loved one dies, they come to us in dreams. And so many of us will chalk it up as like, that was just a dream, but it felt really real. It felt like they were there. I could feel their hug, but it's not a dream. And in every one of those dreams, when they communicate, their lips aren't moving. It's just an understanding of the message.
Yes, absolutely. And people dismiss interactions with their loved ones all the time because it's like that, so they second guess themselves, or it's small little signs that they are dismissing or not picking up on, but like that's really how it works. It isn't usually this huge like lightning bolt and they're standing right in front of you. Like almost never is it like that. It's these small things that you will miss if you're not looking for it, or if you aren't willing to accept that it could be your loved one trying to communicate with you.
So I remember when we were on the island back in September and we were writing our books together, we were talking about mediumship and developing mediumship. And we talked about how it's like the signs are so subtle. You have to become so quiet and so sensitive. And so you had mentioned that you had always known they'd always just been there. You just weren't aware that it was there. So it wasn't like it just suddenly developed. It was like something latent inside of you that you're now able to connect to on a deeper level. Can you share more about how you came to realize that this gift was buried, dismissed, lost? I don't know.
Yes. Okay, let me think of the very best way to start. When I look back over the course of my life, I can see that this was always there. It was always, always there, but I couldn't quite see it because I didn't think it was possible. So, like, my mind limited me on what I thought was possible. And so, a couple of years ago, it was about 2.5 years ago, I was doing a plant medicine journey. Mm-hmm. A psilocybin journey. My intention going in was like, prior to this, I had always said, like, what am I not seeing? What am I not seeing? I always felt like I was missing something. And I didn't feel like I had fully stepped into my deepest soul's purpose or my deepest soul's work. Like with every modality that I had learned of learning to use energy and connecting with the body, I always thought that was like the end all. Like, oh, this is it. This is what I'm doing forever. So it started with like yoga, getting certified in yoga. And then I got into sound healing and Reiki, and it just never felt complete. I always felt like I was missing something. And so I just kept saying again, like, what am I not seeing? What am I not seeing? And so I said, my intention for this experience was, I know that I'm blocking myself in some way from connecting more deeply to my spiritual gifts, but I don't know how. And as soon as I came into the medicine, I came in before anybody else, and I could feel and hear like little kids playing. And so I was just like, and my guide had instructed us all in the beginning, like, if you're welcome to share things with other people. If you're getting things for other people, that's part of the experience too. She probably said somewhere in there about asking permission first, if people are open to hearing that. I think I missed that part. So I'm just telling people plain as day what I'm seeing. It's just like, it would be the same as saying, like, there's a black chair right here and it has an arch right here and then it has 4 legs and the seat is like that's exactly what it felt like. It just was. And there was a girl next to me. Like, I just kept asking, like, is anyone not done having kids, or has anyone had children that have passed? Does anyone? And this girl turns next to me and she's like, I don't have any kids. And I'm like, oh, these are your kids. And she's like, I don't know if I want kids. I'm like, oh, well, they're here if you want them. I was just doing that, like, just speaking so directly. And the guide came in. She's like, you need to ask people before you share with them, see if they're open. And that just completely shut me down, because I was like, I'm doing something wrong. I'm in trouble. I don't like to be in trouble. So then I just and I didn't think about that. I don't know. I didn't think anything of it in that whole experience. And even going home, I don't know. I don't know. So then it was probably like a month and a half later, I was in my home and I was super relaxed. I had just had a massage, so I just felt not in my head at all. And I rounded the corner to go to my room, and there was a girl standing there, a girl that had just passed away 3 weeks prior. And I had never met this girl. Mm-hmm. I had only heard about her passing from a friend of a friend. She was a young girl, 16, died of cancer. And when I rounded the corner to go to my room, I did like what you would do if anybody was standing there that you weren't expecting. I was like, oh my God, like, what are you doing here? And even though I had never met her, never seen a picture, like I knew it was her. I knew it was her.
Mm-hmm.
I could see her, and I can see, like, it's in my third eye. So I'm looking out here, but it's in my third eye, so I can see her and I can feel how she feels. I can feel things that she wants to say. And I realized like I had to change my belief system on what was possible. The thing that was limiting me was my mind and what I believed was possible. And it wasn't even like this thing isn't possible. It was a lot more personal than that. It was
Like, this isn't possible for me.
possible for me.
Mm.
Who am I? Like,
Mm-hmm.
who am I to be able to do this? And I'm not like doing anything. Like, I'm not worthy enough, or like, I'm not meditating enough. I don't know, what do you have to do to get a gift like that? I don't know. So in that instant, all of my belief systems around that crumbled. And it's like, well, shit, this is happening in real time. So I got to make a new belief system,
Wow.
Yeah.
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Undeniable. And that is really what opened up, when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see all these moments that I just didn't even recognize or couldn't even see because I wasn't looking for it.
Until it was literally just like right in your face.
Yes.
Just right in your face. The universe was like, no more hiding, no more denying, no more disbelief.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Wild.
Yeah. So the plant medicine was like this catalyst where I've served a lot of medicine to people. I do ketamine in my office every week with clients. Not everybody does that. That's not everybody's experience of plant medicine. Like, it's some people's experience of plant medicine. I've had those experiences in plant medicine, but I don't think that's the norm. So what an interesting bridge to your gifts. And so now after that ceremony and after this girl shows up in your hallway, how does it continue to evolve and unfold for you? And how do you really start to embody these gifts?
I had sought out like some mentoring and coaching, because I was like, what do I do with this? What am I supposed to do with this? And I felt like, well, clearly this girl is here because I know a friend of a friend that knows her family, and she's wanting me to give some messages to her family. That's clearly why she's here. And I tried to do that. I tried to reach out to the family, the asking of the permission thing. I was going to try that. And I was very shocked. Honestly, the family said no. They said that they couldn't do that. And I wasn't expecting that at all. Mm-mm. And that completely threw me because I was like, no. Like, I felt like I was holding this gift out with this beautiful like red ribbon. And I'm like, if you knew what was in this box, like you would want it, like open the box. But I can't do that. And I have to honor their free will. And so I thought that this girl would leave after that because I thought she was coming for one reason. And over 2 years later, she's never left.
Whoa.
Never left.
She still visits you.
Yeah. She has been my greatest teacher about the spirit world. Like, my greatest mentors are not physical people. They are like the beings that live there. Who better to teach me than the people that live there, know?
Yeah.
And so I know that she and I have soul contracts, and she is a teacher for me, and she is a guide for me. And I wish so deeply that someday I wish that her parents could get to a place where they could hear some of this. The losing of a child, I think, there's no greater pain than that. No greater pain. And I wish that I could tell them that their daughter, this life that they created, raised through for her, life that she was here, still plays a vital role in somebody else's life. Like, she is an active member of my life. And I wish that they could know that. So bringing it all home, we just don't even know what's possible. Who would even think that that's possible? Someone that didn't know my child very much knows my child now,
No, I have goosebumps like down my neck as you're talking right now because I work with so many bereft parents as a therapist, and there's this organization helping parents heal locally, and they that's what they do, is they help parents heal by connecting them to their child in spirit. And it's such a gift. I just feel like I encourage all bereft parents to go, because it's like, wow, what greater, you can come to therapy, like I can help, but I can't help in that way. And to know that like your child's soul lives on, but not only lives on, has a purpose, and they're continuing. Because I think so much of the grief is like, as parents, we have dreams for our children, and we want to see those dreams realized and actualized and fulfilled, and it makes us so proud. And we get into so much pain when our children for whatever reason can't actualize dreams. And that's just the finality of it. It's hard for me to even really try to put myself in those shoes as a parent. It's heartbreaking that they can't receive that gift, but what a gift it would be to know that their child still has a divine purpose that they're carrying out from the other side. Like, I can't even imagine what a weight that would lift. And I hope one day that they have a change of heart.
I know. I thought maybe like the mom would leave the door open, like maybe she was very, very kind. And I thought maybe she'd say like someday, but she didn't say that. So I don't feel like I can necessarily like, now are you ready?
Yeah.
But it just, in the beginning, I thought, what am I supposed to do with this gift? And like, do I just go around delivering messages to people? Like, I mean, is that how this is supposed to work? So in the beginning, it really is like the other side sees this open portal, and it's just this line full of beings like wanting to talk to their people. If you know their people in any way, it's like, can you da, 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 da? And so I was getting nothing done in my human life on the daily, because it was just all the time. And I thought it was so cool. And I was so afraid of doing something that would turn it off. So like one of my mentors was like, you get to set boundaries with the spirit world. And I didn't want to do that, because I'm like, I'll do it wrong. I'll mess it up. I'll turn it off. I don't want to turn this off. But then also like I was getting nothing done. So over time, with some practice, and I realized like, I can't do anything wrong, really. And kind of learning how they communicate with me. I think it's a lot easier-ish to deliver messages when people are distinctly coming to you.
Right.
It feels very clear that way, but there was a lot of work that I had to do within myself to sit with someone that I didn't know and just call it in and just, like, what's happening here,
That feels like a lot of pressure. I mean, I'll tell you, I get hits from time to time. I wouldn't ever say I've had an experience of a line of people just chomping at the bit for me to connect them. But when I'm in the shower, when I'm getting ready for work, when I'm meditating, stuff comes in. But for me, it would feel like so much pressure to sit across from another person and be like, okay, doors open, and to trust that would happen. What was the work? When you say the work, right? Like, what did you have to cultivate inside of yourself to build that level of confidence, or maybe even that level of depth in relationship with spirit, to know that when that person sits across from you, that their loved ones are going to come through?
Well, I practiced for like 2 years before I ever started to charge anything, and like having to put my ego aside, as far as like I could get this wrong, or I might not get it right. And is it okay if I don't quite get anything, or I'm not quite able to connect with whom this person is wanting to connect with? So I practiced for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have similar experience when we were younger of sexual trauma.
Yes.
And sexual trauma completely disconnects you from your body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the body is the intuitive one. The body is the channel. So we think of intuition like out here, but like, no, it like comes, the channel is the body. So my greatest work has been connecting more deeply with the body, because that's where the information comes in, and becoming so familiar with my own energy that I can pick up on any tiny little subtle shift. I can pick up on a sensation and know that it's coming from somewhere else. It's not quite mine. So
I'm so glad you said that, because when we talked about plant medicine being the catalyst, I was kind of thinking to myself, yeah, that was a catalyst for me. but in a different experience from yours. And now I'm realizing it was much more similar than I realized. Because for me, before I ever started getting intuitive hits in plant medicine, was I had to heal and know and retrieve memories of sexual abuse in my first plant medicine experiences. And then it was in subsequent ones, almost like, hey, you did the work, and here's what was buried underneath it. Because you couldn't trust your knowing, because you were told that your knowing was wrong and those things were denied. And so, because of that, you don't feel like you know anything. And yes, you're disconnected from your body completely because it's too painful to live there.
Too painful. Yeah.
So for
No.
me, yes, for me, it's like the ability was the treasure that was awaiting me after I came to know what I know and worked through the trauma of the abuse.
Yes. And like having to go so deeply in those places within ourselves, that is really how we alchemize the wound. And
Absolutely.
it becomes our greatest gifts and our greatest wisdom. But yeah, my whole life I was running away. I didn't want to be in this. Only caused me pain,
Hmm.
so much pain on a mental and emotional level, but then also on a physical level. I had so many health problems. So I was like, I don't want this body. Get me out of here. So like learning to connect with myself, like it for me, that first started like with yoga and meditation and breathing and pulled me in closer, deeper into my body. But then, and the other side of that coin is like I have to see these places, go to these places that I never wanted to go.
Exactly. Exactly. It's interesting. I don't know if you had this experience, but when I was a little kid, I would see spirits in my room all the time. I would have dreams after loved ones died. But a lot of the spirits that I saw in my home as a child were scary and they were dark. And I realize now it's because they were connected to my dad's addiction, to the abuse, and they were attached to him. But I wouldn't just see the dark things. I would see angels sometimes standing between me and them, almost as a source of protection or safety. And you don't know what's real and what's not when you're little. But looking back now, it makes so much more sense.
Yeah. I didn't have that, honestly. I
Mm.
think super early on, I was 3 when I first experienced sexual trauma. And so I think what I did there was, I completely dissociated and was like, I don't want to see. I don't want to see what's
Mhm.
really happening. I don't want to see what's really there. And it cut off my sight completely.
Sure.
So like I connected very much with like my personal team and my ancestors that had already passed, but I thought that was just normal. I thought anybody that was like spiritual could do that. So that felt very normal for me. I never really saw or felt other people's people, but I also wasn't even
Mhm.
looking. I was very, very, when I think back, so connected to angels. And I think even now I'm very connected to like angelic energy. And so I had angels all over in my room. I had pictures and books and figurines, and I didn't really know why, but that was really like the extent. Like I couldn't see, because I chose not to see. I
Yep.
couldn't
And what
handle.
a gift, right? Like, what a gift for your tiny self and for mine that we were able to disconnect from our bodies. And I think that's God's protection. It's something I feel really deeply about not wanting sexual abuse survivors to have shame over is like, why did I betray myself? And I feel like it's so important to reframe that it was never a betrayal. It was literally how we survived. And it's not until we have a paradigm of safety where we can bloom and blossom and be safe to expose ourselves in that way and open up, because just like a flower, right, it needs fertile soil and it needs sunlight and it needs water to open its petals. We can't force that to open, and
Yes.
those petals stay tightly shut for a really good reason, and I think sometimes we just need to honor ourselves for that.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. So tell me about the work that you do today. So I mean, it took you, doing your own trauma work, healing yourself, learning how to set boundaries and have spiritual boundaries around your gift to really be able to work as a medium that like you do now. So what does your work with people look like now?
So now I do one on one work, and people can set up a session via Zoom or in person. It's really lovely, like to be able to do Zoom and to be able to offer this work to anywhere in the world, because it's just
Mhm.
energy. Energy is accessible from anywhere. So sometimes people are like, do I need to be there? I'm like, no, It's totally fine. So that's presently what I do as far as like the one-on-one work. I do like group, like meditation, sound healing in my backyard. I lead events like that. And I like that, but I'm wanting to expand more in what I offer. And I'm finding my problem now is I don't know how to dream. Like I really don't. I, when people say like, go back to when you were a little girl and you were so free and you had all these dreams, I'm like, no, that was not me. So I don't know how to do that. And so I'm like hitting a ceiling again of my own making. Because I want to help more people and I want to, I just don't know what that looks like or what I want it to look like or how I can reach more people in a way that feels very fulfilling to me too.
Yeah.
So I'm coming up on a ceiling. I'm trying to break through.
You know, you and I have such a big year coming up. I mean, just for the listeners who don't know, because I don't think I've even talked about this on the show, Chris and I are getting ready to go back to the British Virgin Islands on a reality TV show where we're going to write a second book in 5 days while being filmed, like no pressure or anything. And then we've enrolled ourselves in this business school where we're being mentored in a small group to develop offerings and businesses that are in alignment with our soul's purpose. So I have a feeling, because I feel like I'm in a really similar place to you where I'm being really called to give up psychotherapy on a one-on-one level, but it's my passion. It's what I love. And it's where I feel like I shine and my gifts are at their most expressed, where I can help people at the deepest level. So I've been like really wrestling with that. But it's like with everything we have coming up, I felt called like, okay, you're going to need time and space to create. But I haven't been shown the vision yet either. So I'm in this deep state again of like learning how to trust that even if my consciousness doesn't know what's next, that my higher self has something planned with the man upstairs.
Yeah.
And that will be shown. So I'm glad I have you on this journey with me because it's hard.
Yeah, that was part of my call yesterday, like in that business coaching group. It was just like dreaming and not know how to dream. And so Kira, our coach, had said, just really feel into like what's being planted in your heart because it's being planted by the divine in your heart and just follow that breadcrumb. And this is such a big year for me. I'm calling in abundance like crazy, like not just like money, but like a currency. It's a currency of energy. And I feel like I'm being invited to do a lot of different things all at the same time, which is normally not how my system operates, because I get overwhelmed very easy and then my system just wants to like shut down. But I'm like retraining my nervous system, like, no, we just move a little faster now and we can do a lot more at one time. So something that I really want to do, I don't quite know how it'll look like or what, but in listening to that Telepathy Tapes podcast, I know I want to work more in the special needs community. And I know I want to somehow help these non-speaking kids and their parents. Honestly, I want to empower the parents. And there was an episode on episode 7, and they're talking about how there's this energetic place called the Hill. And it's where the souls of all these kids that can't speak with their mouths can go and like be in community with each other. They have friends and, other souls and beings that understand them. And on this episode, there was a girl that can use a spell to communicate with her mother. And she's telling her mom about this boy that is so sad because he has he can't spell to communicate yet. Like they don't know that he's even in there, his parents. And so he just feels so alone. And so she's recounting to her mother, Mom, we have to help Gerald. She's saying this we have to help Gerald. Like he's so sad. He just wants to die. And so the mom's like, oh my gosh, well, where does he live? And it could be he could be in Russia,
Yeah.
And the girl wasn't able to gather any more information. She just said, he lives across the street from the park. And she's like, well, where's the park? So she checked the school and there's no Gerald anywhere. And just how distraught this girl was that she couldn't help her friend, and distraught that the mother was that she couldn't help either, and that the daughter is carrying all this weight of trying to help this friend. And so the lady that hosts the show, her name's Kai Dickens, I think, and she says, I wish there was some wise adult that could go to the Hill and get the names of these kids and get them on spellers. And I got chills all over my whole entire body. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to the Hill. I got to go to the Hill. And I told my husband, and he's like, so how are you going to do that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. But I know I want to go to the Hill.
Wow.
I know I want to go to the Hill. And My son's friend that my friend's son that I was talking about earlier, the non-speaking son with autism, I was talking to his mother one day, and I was like, really sitting with like, oh, can I just go to the hill? If I want to go to the hill, do I need to be invited to the hill? Can anybody just go to the hill? Like, what's a prerequisite to go to the hill? And so I sent his mother that message on Sunday when we were at the conference, our JO conference, the Success Codes conference. We've got our girl Kira up there speaking. And like in my mind's eye, I can see this scene of like a playground. So like, I'm trying to pay attention to her. I can see this playground, and this boy, his name is Theo, my little friend, non-speaker friend, and he's grabbing my hand and he's pulling me through all of these kids on a playground. And so I thought, oh, he wants his friends to meet me. He's like, come meet my friends. And as he keeps pulling me through, I'm like, oh, he wants me to meet someone. And then later that day, as I sat with it, I'm like, I think he was taking me to the hill. I think he was to the hill. Yes. So I reached out to his mom and I'm like, guess what? I think Theo was taking me to the hill. And she said, in a conversation with him the night prior as they were going to bed, she said to him, Theo, come visit me in my dreams tonight, and you should take Karissa to the hill. Literally the next morning, he took me. I don't have all the pieces in place. I'm trying to, pull them in as I can, but I know I want to work on the hill, and I know I want to help these kids, and I want to help their parents. And I am so open to being guided as to what that looks like or how I do that.
I feel like, I just got goosebumps again, just head to toe as you're talking about that. And I feel like I just have no doubt in my mind that you will be led there and that those steps will avail themselves to you. And maybe we'll just kind of put a shout out to our listeners today that if you're open to this, but that if anybody has a nonverbal child and would want, guidance or your ability to communicate, that they drop you a line. And I'm going to have all that information for them in the show notes today. What a beautiful, not only gift, but understanding. What a beautiful knowledge, because the autism rates are skyrocketing. And so more and more parents have to hold that fear and worry that, where's my kid going to be when I pass away? Or how are they going to be cared for in the capacity that I only know how to care for them? And to know that there's people who can communicate with their children and that this can be developed would probably give them so much peace,
So much peace. And to really, because I think we naturally tell ourselves stories of what these kids must be thinking or feeling, so my daughter Marley that has special needs, she's able to speak, but her intellectual ability is, like 8-ish maybe. So of course I'm telling myself stories all the time of how she must be feeling about me, what I'm doing wrong or whatever. But when we can really like hear from their own voice, their own soul, so to speak, like how they really feel, and how they really feel about you as the parent, and how much they champion you and how much they believe in you. Those are the kinds of things they say. They never say, you didn't do this and you're not doing this and I wish I had a different. They never say that, ever. They breathe life into the parent. They breathe trust into the parent. Like honestly, confidence in the parent. Like, you can do this. You're doing so good. We can do this together. Like, it is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. Some of my favorite readings are actually for parents, mothers of a child with special needs, because we are so much harder on ourselves. Like I think with any of our children, we're hard on ourselves, but like, especially with this like perfect child that doesn't know better, they can't back talk you necessarily or break curfew or, we beat ourselves up even more. And so to like hear from them that they believe in us and they love us and want to help us, like, oh my gosh, like, I know you're doing the best you can.
What a gift,
helpful.
right?
Yes.
These wise souls just in a body that they can't express all of themselves through, not in a way that most people can understand, because clearly they can. It's just we have to have the ears to hear and the eyes to see. And we haven't developed that muscle yet.
Right. And I, doing work in the community like this and with kids with autism, I feel like the telepathy tapes is paving the way to give some kind of holding space to this kind of work, because that's example after example from places all over the world, different scenarios and people of this working, of this truth, honestly. So I think, people's minds are being blown, their eyes are being opened to what's really possible.
As you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, every soul has a purpose, and every disability, every challenge that we set up for ourselves in this human form serves not only us, but serves the world in some way if we can allow it to. Even the most heinous things, right? Like the most violent acts, if we as a community can come together and learn how to overcome them or draw closer, then it wasn't all a loss, right? And so I'm just kind of wondering to myself, have you been able to glean or understand what are the lessons that these wise souls in this restricted body want us to know as a planet?
I think, like, can we choose love over anything else? Over anything else. I have seen before a visual image that maybe wasn't literal necessarily, but when I saw it, I knew the meaning of the message. And it was my daughter, Marley, my daughter with special needs, speaking to me. It was like the firming up of our agreements, our soul contracts before we came here. And in it, she said, like, my body, my life, this experience is going to challenge everything you think you know about love. And I think, like, that's the basis for everything, being challenged on what we think we know about acceptance, about peace, about unity, about healing. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. So, this year, it's 2025. In numerology, this is a 9 year. That's the ending of cycles. And I believe in my heart this year that we've been under so much illusion. We've been living under so many lies. And scarcity and love has been the biggest lie that we've bought and have been sold. And it's so affirming to hear that, something like that podcast, something like the work that you do is, again, that disruptor energy that we talked about before, that's challenging people to see the bigger picture, to understand that there's a spiritual solution for our problems and that we can't create this new world from the consciousness that created the old one. It has to evolve. And I feel like, these kids, that perception of these children is what disrupts those patterns and allows our souls, our earth to evolve in the way that it's supposed to be evolving, because change just feels so imminent on our planet right now.
Totally. Absolutely. And I think also, they're here to teach us, along with other ways that we learn, like separateness is an illusion.
Yep.
Like, we have to come together, but it starts with self, like connecting with self deeply. That's the only, that's the way that we start to be able to have a holding place to connect with other people.
Absolutely. We literally cannot meet people in the spaces that we haven't met ourselves. And I feel like for me, part of my healing journey, part of when I really had to think about, okay, yeah, I went through some really early childhood abuse. And why? Why would my soul choose that? And I realized, it came so clear to me that if I'm going to meet people in the dark, I can't be afraid to walk in the dark. I have to walk in front of people and I have to be able to hold the light. And my early childhood experiences and the subsequent healing of them allows me to walk in the dark. And so because that feels like a sacred role to me, that I get to walk alongside, people who have suffered abuse, and I get to help them alchemize that, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
I'd do it all over again. And that perspective is healing. So I hope that gives some hope to individuals, to mothers, to parents, who are listening today.
Yes. And we all have the choice. I think we collectively spend a lot of time going back and, wondering why that happened, or feeling sorry for ourselves, but like, we can't do anything about that. Like, it already happened. It already happened. So the choice is, what am I going to do with this now? How can I use this now to my benefit? What can I learn from this? What gifts can be in this? That is all we can really do. So then just do that. Stop going back or blaming. That doesn't do any good at all.
Yeah.
Use
absolutely.
it, alchemize it, and then let's move forward.
Let's move forward and let's figure it out. How do we use our experiential wisdom? Because when we've been through the kind of shit you and I have been through and we've healed it, it's embodied now as wisdom. Those are codes that we have that we get to transmit and share with other people. And so it doesn't matter what you've been through. It's like, how do you access those codes to then lift others out of the mud, right? Like, and everybody has a unique ability and a unique gift that they get to use to heal themselves and others. And when we can all live from that place of brilliance, oh my gosh, the world would be a nice place to be.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's Carolyn Mace. She says every one of us is born with something that our community seeks us out for. And to the listeners, if you don't quite know what that is yet, find it, like sit with it. Just like I have been advised to do, sitting with what's being planted in my heart, because that's coming from a higher source, a divine source. But I firmly believe every one of us does have a gift, something that our community seeks us out for. And it's used to help benefit ourselves, but humanity.
Absolutely. Yeah, humanity as a whole. Karissa, this was such a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Talk all day. This was so easy. I know.
Seriously, when are we going to do it again? I feel like we have so many more things to talk about and to share. And we're going to have so many more experiences this year that we're probably going to need to talk about.
Yes. Kristy's helping me tap into more cosmic energy, and I'm liking it.
Have you had any more experiences with that since we met?
Something's open because I can see a somebody right here all the time now. I don't quite know what they're saying, but they're there. So I'm like, interesting. Okay.
Who? So, sorry, you have me so curious now. I'm like, who's here?
It's somebody from that star planet. I don't know. I can tell you what they look like, but.
You know, and I haven't talked about this piece on the show very much, but I guess, you know, you kind of just opened the door. So I think I'm going to. But yeah, so part of my psychedelic journey has been tapping into cosmic consciousness, which means interdimensional beings from other planets. And they've, like, when you talked about that little girl being your teacher and how you've learned more from that 16-year-old who passed from cancer than anybody else, I was thinking it's these light beings, honestly, that have probably guided me on my journey the most and who have helped me heal. Like, I tend to channel these healer entities who have blue skin, and they are the ones who show me symbols to use with people. They've taught me how to activate and send energy. So when people are ready to find out about their cosmic roots and heritage, or where they've incarnated, maybe in other times or places, or are currently incarnated, in addition to being here on this planet, there's like this transmission that I can send to help them open that portal and learn more about that. So it's been a really interesting ride. It's been probably the scariest thing for me to talk about as a licensed professional, because it's been the ET stuff that, you know, that'll put you in the loony bin quicker than anything else. But their message has been so beautiful, so healing, and they seem to have played a really big role in seeding our planet as who we are as humans throughout time and history. And they're in all the ancient texts. It's all there. I had to go down a rabbit hole of research after I kind of opened this up to figure out what's going on, because I can't deny what's happening right now. But yeah, they've kind of seeded our evolution throughout history. So they feel really active on our planet at this time. And if you guys read my book, Sacred Revolution, I go into a lot more detail about it.
I love this. And in a conversation you and I had, you said that they are very, you know, those like cosmic beings, intergalactic beings are very respectful of us. And, you know, so like for me, and probably for you in our own way, but like we have a need to always want to be safe, especially because, you know, we were unsafe at some point. And so I think I have only connected with more earth energy because that has felt safe to me. Mm-hmm. But now I've built enough safety, like maybe galactic or cosmic energy has felt unsure. You know, like, how do I feel about that? I don't know. And so I'm creating more safety and building more safety, opening myself up to that. But it really helps for people to speak out about this and speak up about the experiences that they're having, you know, like because you are having experiences like that and I have been in your energy enough, like I trust you. I trust you. And so then that helps me have more safety in something that feels unknown and unfamiliar to me, but it opens that up in me. And so I just want to honor you for speaking up, for sharing about that. And I know you're going to be doing that more and more over time, but like I think some of these things we don't want to hear or want to see because it feels unknown, but it doesn't mean that it's not there and that it's not happening.
Totally. And they're one of the big messages that they've been giving me consistently since I'm going to call it I'll come up with the word. I'm going to come back to that. But since they've really come into my life and started playing a very active role, one of the big messages is that they're already here. They're on our planet. And it's important for us to know that they are loving because there's a good chance that there's going to be a narrative that paints them into a really scary light that could create a lot of global conflict. And so that's a lie. And our discernment is going to have to be really, really keen for us to know what's real and what's not real and what's safe and what's not safe. And so I'm actually in April going to be going on a cruise with Dr. Stephen Greer of the CE5 Contact films and the Disclosure Project. And he's taking a group of just 200 people on a cruise. And so we're going to be doing CE5 contact, which is conscious contact with ETs over the Caribbean. I know. So I have had lots of contact with these beings already. It started in psychedelic space, but it's continued so much outside of that. I've had so many experiences in my day-to-day life where the way you describe your mediumship is kind of how they come to me, and their vibration feels different. Like when I've had mediumship experiences and it's very soft and very subtle, almost like a daydream that I could easily miss or dismiss. But this cosmic energy, it's electric. There's like a buzz. There's quickness in my thoughts. It's almost like I really have to raise my consciousness to a space that's much more foreign than a space of mediumship where it feels like I just need to soften and open my heart. This is like I've just had 80,000 coffees and I need to it's almost like I want to talk really fast, and people might say it looks a little manic when it happens, but it certainly doesn't come out that way. It's just that entire concepts and it through a symbol or a word will get dropped into my head and I need to speak it out really quick. It's almost like they give me a ball of yarn that I then need to unspool with my words to try to make it make sense because the entire concept's there. But I need to now, through my humanness, write it out to understand it. And that's how my whole first book was written.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to witness you in action one day. I just want to see this. This is
Right?
cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been quite the experience. And what's interesting is they're very connected to Jesus for me because Jesus, like Christ, has been so present whenever they've been present. And so that's been an interesting parallel also. And in my book, I actually talk about how in the stars, the story of Christ is written out through this, the Orion's belt. And so it talks about in the stars, like if you go to get an astrology reading, right? You can learn through astrology, like, hey, what's my solar return? What's going to happen for me this year? Or at the time of my birth, my natal chart, what are my soul agreements? It's written in the stars. You can find a roadmap to your life. And Christ was written in the stars too. And so it's been very interesting because the initiation, I felt like I received an initiation from them, and Christ was very present in that initiatory experience as well, almost to be like, hey, don't fear this, like I'm here and this is love, and there's these other beings that are here to help as well. So I don't know what it all means yet, but it's all very connected, and I do know that. So I think we're still unraveling. Mm-hmm. We are absolutely on the same team. And we are so primitive as humans, right? Like we're still dealing with racism in 2025. Are we really ready to have tolerance on an intergalactic level and to take our seat in our cosmic citizenship? Or are we not progressed enough? You know, it's an interesting question. Like we still can't figure out racism. So I think we have some evolving to do, but I think they're here to help with that. But the God of my understanding is infinitely creative. And in that infinite creation, I don't think we're the only ones that exist, right? Science has shown there's multiple universes. And so, in his infinite creativity, I think that there's infinite levels of avatars, frequencies, and dimensions, right? I mean, souls are not created or destroyed. And I think sometimes they choose incarnations that are a little less dense and a little less physical than the one that we're experiencing now. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just going to invite listeners. This was probably a left turn that nobody was expecting today. I haven't talked a lot about it, but please let us know if you've had experiences with either mediumship or with interdimensional beings. I would love to hear about those experiences. If you guys are wanting to hear more about this stuff, I'd love to know that too. So drop us a line, let us know. Karissa, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for being on today. Awesome. All right, listeners, we will see you next time. Bye.